booties for black girl nerds.
All right. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in to yet another episode of our Kindred recap show. I'm here with Angelica and Ryan. Hey, you guys. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hey.
So we're going to recap episodes 3 and 4 for you guys. And then towards the end, we'll let you know how we're going to do the rest of the series. But for now, we'll dive right into episode 3, which is aptly titled Furniture. But before we get into our recap, I'm going to tell you to do all the things. Follow us, subscribe if you have not done so already. If you just happen to have stumbled onto this video, you can subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/FlixGirl. Don't ask me why it's that. It just is, okay? And you can follow us on Twitch. We don't have a presence on there that's that heavy yet, but trust me when I tell you we will. Just go ahead and follow us so that way you do not miss out when we start uploading content. So follow us on Twitch, follow us on YouTube, subscribe, of course. And, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. So do all the things. You can see there at the bottom where you can follow us on the socials on all the fun networks. So there you go. On to episode 3 of Kindred, Furniture. Has some pretty deep meaning there, right?
Yes. And we'll
All
get
right.
into why.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll take it away then.
Take it away, Angelica.
So we open this episode. Dana is awakened by her mother, Olivia. Olivia is there. Obviously, they've been kind of looking for her the previous episode. And they kind of have a discussion about, Olivia wanting to understand how Dana travels, because it seems like Olivia has only traveled once and then she was stuck. That's the narrative that I'm getting from this series. And Dana's been able to go back and forth. So as she's upstairs with Dana, Olivia's upstairs with Dana, Rufus is downstairs relentlessly ringing that bell. Dana, he wants her to read to him. And Thomas is like hella annoyed with his son. So Olivia tells Dana like they need to leave because Margaret deeply mistrusts Olivia. And then, the one thing they didn't want, Margaret comes upstairs looking for Dana because obviously she's trying to please Rufus, and there she finds Olivia. She calls her a witch. She claims that Olivia, brought the devil upon their child twice. Thomas demands to know why Olivia's even in their home in the first place, and then Kevin and Dana kind of come up with this lie that she wasn't feeling well, and since Olivia is a healer, she's attending to her. So then Thomas kind of gets the understanding that maybe, he says Dana has a lazy nature to her. Seems like Dana might be pregnant, and they kind of run with that lie. And he allows Olivia to look after Dana, but later, and outside of the home. So, Dana goes downstairs to attend to Rufus. And then as they're going downstairs, Olivia tells her, like, get information from that Rufus kid. There seems to be a connection between the two of you. He may be the reason why you're traveling. He could be an ancestor. Like, we need to get deets. So I'll stop there.
I just thought it was cool. I was glad to see Dana wake up to Olivia and not something else. Because you never know what she was going to walk into. And the fact that she could sleep, I would just be so nervous. Like, this is my surroundings and where I'm at. Like, but I mean, I guess she's exhausted and moving around these different times. So maybe it's just taking a toll on her. But yeah, I was just, that's the only thing I had to offer. So I was just glad that's who she woke up to because I was nervous for her.
Yeah. Dana's very comfortable in the past. It seems.
It's so bizarre. She's just, and meanwhile, Kevin is like, when do we get out of here? When do we get us out of here?
How about now?
Yeah. And it's weird that the white guy, right?
Yeah.
He, like, this is a place that is actually, a comfortable, I wouldn't say comfortable, but, it's a place that's going to give him security. It's a place that he doesn't have to be fearful of. It's a place that he doesn't ever have to worry about being a slave or having any sort of threat being imposed on him. None of that will be something he has to worry about. Yet Kevin is always constantly trying to figure out how to get out of this timeline. Yet Dana is sort of just lollygagging around, trying to figure life out and really figure out her genealogy, her heritage, really understand what's going on with Olivia, and even try to understand this concept of this time traveling thing. So yeah, like you said, Angela, Dana's really comfortable, and it's almost kind of weird, but at the same time, it does speak to the fact that Dana's, really curious about her ancestry, so much so that she's willing to take a lot of risks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dana's like, leave me back here. I'm gonna be all right. So yeah, she ends up, like I said, going downstairs to Rufus. They have a discussion. She learns that Rufus actually started the fire in his bedroom, and he did it to get back at his father for beating him. I don't think it's explained in the show, but in the book, Rufus took like $1 from his father's, wallet, and that's why Thomas beat him. And then during the conversation, Rufus kind of casually refers to Dana, as using the N-word. And Dana's like, I don't care what time period we're in, you're not going to call me that. I mean, she doesn't say it, but she's like, Rufus, don't call me that. Where I come from, we don't use that word. In the book, she very clearly said, refer to me as a Black person. And then Rufus is like, well, if I get to call you Black, then you got to call me master. You got to call, we got to call each other the appropriate thing. But here it's just much like, just don't call me that. So I asked her like where she's from, and she says it's complicated. And then Rufus asks, is she a witch like Olivia? And, Dana's like, well, why do you guys think Olivia is a witch? And she's like, well, my mother had all these babies that she was never able to carry to full term. My Olivia looked after my mom when I was in her belly, and so I was the only baby that survived. And as mentioned earlier, Margaret believes that Olivia sent a devil to Rufus's crib, and that's when Dana realizes that was her all along. So it was an interesting exchange between the two of them, kind of us getting a little bit more background on what could possibly be the reason why Rufus keeps calling to Dana, and also explains a little bit of that scene that happened in the first episode where Dana sees Rufus in his crib, and Olivia and Margaret freak out. So I'll stop there for your thoughts.
I absolutely love that she corrected him, because it was so awkward. I was like, she's trying to get information and he's just throwing like, it's a time period, but also being like a little boy, and you like, now he's learned that from his parents, just that thing of like racism being something that is taught at that time period, like him being so young and thinking that's just like the appropriate way to talk, and that's okay. And I love that even though it's a time period, she's like, yeah, that's not gonna fly. Like, we can't sit here and keep talking and you call me out my name like that. So I love how that was approached in that scene. But yeah, it's just Margaret, like, I love how they always go to the fact of like, oh, it was the Black woman that did it. Like, she had to do something while you lost all the babies. Not maybe that she didn't, help, where that's why you have Rufus, but it's the opposite of that. So now she's a witch. So it's like, if they can't explain it where they can use the N-word on you, then it's like a witch, and you something mystical that they don't understand. So yeah, that whole scene was it's so interesting to see that play out, and her in that time period, and knowing the history that she knows in the future, and then having to go back and like, well, do I take this? Do I punch him at this moment? Do I cut in at this moment, or do I just take it? So this scene was very interesting.
Yeah, I just hate Margaret. Margaret's just an evil. There's so many words I have that YouTube will probably ding us for that, but yeah, but that's how these women acted back then. They were very entitled, and they treated us like furniture. And they valued furniture more than they valued the human lives of Black people, to be frank. Right. But yeah, I did like the fact that Dana kind of puts Rufus in his place. Who knows? Maybe that's the most stern treatment that he's got from an older adult for the first time. Because I get the sense that Margaret just kind of babies him anyway. Yeah, so he's probably just this spoiled brat. And we learn that he, later on in the book, as he grows up, that he is very much an entitled brat, and is very much the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Let's just say that when it comes to how he treats people compared to how his parents treat people. But yeah, I'm good for Dana for being like, look, that's not, you don't call people that. You don't call black people that. And because that was a risky thing to do. Like she could have been overheard, or he could have told on her. So for her to call him out like that, I really respect it. It just goes to show that Dana is a person that is very independent. She, even though she is in this sort of time capsule where your autonomy is stripped of you, she doesn't care. She does not care, and I can respect that.
Yeah, and that plays out later in the episode. So Margaret and Thomas, they're receiving guests for their Christmas party. Margaret's sister-in-law, Isidore, who's also the former mistress of the home, is critical of how Margaret has maintained the home. And so it took me a second to kind of understand how exactly, who owns what, but it seems like Thomas was married to Isidore's sister, Hannah. So I'm assuming Isidore is the oldest. So when she was of age, she ran the household. And then it passed to Hannah when she married Thomas. And then obviously Hannah died. So then he married Margaret. So Margaret is somewhat of an outsider in the family. And, as such, she's kind of critical of Margaret and how she runs the household. She asks her, like, where's my sister's furniture? And Margaret, says she got rid of it. Kevin at this point is there. And as we know, he's very uncomfortable in this time period. He's introduced to Charles and his family. And they kind of have a discussion in the library. Kevin almost gives himself away, but they just assume he's joking. And for some reason, Charles seems to have a liking to Kevin. Kevin appears to be more cultured. He plays the piano. Charles thinks Thomas is just a good-looking idiot. And so that during during that conversation, he also tells Kevin, like, you're good looking too. And Kevin's so awkward. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, oh yeah, right back at you, basically. And Charles is like, oh, you think I'm attractive? And he makes a pass and he grabs Kevin's junk. So we kind of learn that Charles is closeted. And then Thomas walks in on this encounter. And then, so that's all awkward. And meanwhile, while all that was happening, they kind of go into the living room, and Margaret has organized entertainment for the guests, and she has the slave children perform for the guests. And then the children are rewarded by throwing candy at them. And Kevin is visibly uncomfortable. So Kevin's just having all types of awkward experiences in the past. So your thoughts on those two scenes?
So Charles, he was playing that real smooth for a minute until he started inching up close, and I was like, oh God, what's he about to do? What's about to come down? But I like how they can find things about black people back in the day, or you can't do this, you can't do that, but it's like they can easily brush up that you just straight up just grab his genitals, just grabbed it, just went about his business. Didn't say nothing. It was just go determined to hide it and keep pushing it was other bigger issues at the moment. But the white privilege back in the day, Jamie hinted to a couple times, the stuff that they could kind of get away with that nobody's gonna point out. And then the second scene with the kids absolutely pissed me off. And then I was because I didn't want to think about, that was kind of stuff that I was nervous to kind of get into the show about. That I don't want to think about. But I was kind of thinking, when Octavia Butler wrote the book, and her being inspired by, young Black Americans saying, well, I would have did this if I would have been back in that time period and had to face this, and just, forgetting how harsh it was for, slavery back then, and just seeing those kids there, how that's ingrained into their minds. Oh, I got to put on a little show for you, and then I have to sit down here and grab this candy or beg for this candy right now. And their parents not having any control over how their kids are treated, when their kids are pulled to do whatever they have to do. So I just thought that's interesting how they're pulling out these scenes, to make a certain impact, and having the white guy over to the side, he's shocked by it. And it's like, yeah, this is what your people was doing back in the day. Like, this is how it was going down. So it was, it was interesting to see like all these things happening around this one scene, and then like the future impact of that, and like trying not to forget the past. But at the same time, it's hard as a viewer to kind of sit and watch this stuff again.
Agreed, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, just the audacity of Charles grabbing Kevin's crotch like that. Like, I know that his wife was at the cookhouse talking with Sarah at the time, but there was other people in the next room, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they were in some secluded house, or they were completely, private in this moment. So that was just kind of weird and awkward in and of itself, regardless of his sexuality. But yeah, poor Kevin. He doesn't want to be here. He's getting groped. He's getting groped by this random dude, and he's just trying to be friendly. So yeah, that, and I kind of like the way that kind of played out, because he was sort of belittling Kevin's sort of interest in, what was it, the Jane Austen novel? So
Pride and Prejudice.
Pride and Prejudice. So he was belittling his interest in, this very feminist novel, and yet when he realized that there was nothing wrong with that, and he's like, oh, well, maybe he plays for the other team. Okay. So it just goes to show that, it's sad that there's men out there that you've got to belittle, things that are, I guess, feminine in order to hype up your masculinity, so to speak. So yeah, that was just a very weird and awkward moment. No, I just wanted to kind of summarize that. I just feel so bad for Kevin.
Seriously.
Yeah, Kevin has not been having a good time.
No, he's not.
So Carrie, who is the mute daughter of the cook Sarah, was amongst the children at the Christmas party, and Isidore is like really happy to see her, because Sarah was Isidore's nursemaid. So she goes to the cookout to visit Sarah, and then Dana's also kind of en route meeting with Olivia, and she tells Olivia that Rufus really can't control his ability to call Dana. And Dana also brought out the fact that there was another person present when Rufus was in the nursery, but it wasn't Olivia. So, maybe there's another time traveler that we're not aware of. But before they can finish the conversation, Rufus calls for Dana, like regular, like with the bell. So, Dana goes back to Rufus's room, and she's, by this point, Tom has had up to here with Rufus and this bell. So she pretty much stops him from beating Rufus. And then she finally gets to read him the one thing he's been wanting all day long. And then Miss Temperance, who is Charles's daughter around Rufus's age, wanders into Rufus's bedroom, curious about his injury. Like, there's something very off about this little girl. Like, she's like the bad seed to me. She just gives off this aura of like evil trapped in a child. And like, she makes fun of him. Earlier, Carrie and I believe it was Nigel visited Rufus to see how he was doing. They brought him like a little rag doll, so she makes fun of him for playing with dolls, for still playing with his slaves, and she tries to like throw her weight around. Dana's there, so she knocks over a basket of laundry, and she's like, hey nigga, hey wench, come clean this up. And Dana's not moving. Dana's like looking at her like, little girl. And so then, Temperance is like, you know what, your negress is insubordinate. Tell her to come over here so I can smack her. And then Dana's like, do I get to smack you back? Which obviously, this is one of the times where Dana probably should have just kept her mouth shut. But Temperance screams for her father at this point. Charles comes running upstairs. It was kind of a funny scene because like Temperance is like, Daddy, that negress upstairs threatened to strike me. Like, just, so the epitome of white tears,
Yes.
full on little Karen moment, weaponizing her tears. Little Karen. So Charles is demanding that something be done about this. And of course, Margaret and Thomas are like, well, we can't do anything about it. We can't punish her. She's not our property. So then Kevin's like, she belongs to me. And then Charles is like, well, you need to punish her. And Kevin's like, yeah, I'll punish her. And so he's like, okay, well, I want her punishment to be a slap. Like, slap her until she understands that what she did was wrong. And Kevin's like, I can't do that, because she's pregnant. So at this point, Charles is pissed off because he feels like Kevin cares more about his property than about his child. So he leaves, and obviously Thomas is frustrated because they kind of had a business deal on the table. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on that interesting scene. Evil little Temperance.
Oh yeah, evil little Temperance. I like when she entered the room and Rufus is like, "Hey." Okay. Because she was just like the way she walked in, like like the way she just randomly popped up and just walked in. I was like, oh god, it's getting ready to go down. But yeah, she taking class with Margaret. It's all right, you know what I mean? Like she picking all the tips up and everything like that. But yeah, I thought it was funny when Dana came back at her, but I was like you, I was like, oh god, this get ready to go left. When she said it, but yeah, Temperance definitely to be put in her place. Yeah, girl is out of control. I tell you, these kids. Yeah. They out of control here, but yeah, you gotta watch Temperance. She definitely gave me that like evil kid that just pop up in the corner. So yeah, you gotta watch her.
Right. Jamie.
Yeah, her name speaks for itself. Temperance. She's got an evil temper. Yeah, that and just I'm curious to know was Dana, because Angela, you read the book, was Dana as sort of just like super ambitious in the book as she is on this show, as far as just being so forthright with her opinions and just being so bold and audacious?
I remember they're saying that Dana spoke weirdly, but I don't remember her being as like, you know what I'm saying, like talking crazy to people. I think she was a little bit smarter about how she moved in the books, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
This Dana is a little different.
She's a little different. I mean, I agree with you. I don't remember her being as audacious, but at the same time, like I think this actually takes place in 2016. I think that's the actual year that this show is adapting from. People are a little bit more bold, and Black women in particularly. I thought my camera had cut off. Black women in particularly are very, very bold and very independent at this in this era. So it makes sense that she speaks and acts the way she does and has that kind of autonomy that I think a Black woman in 1979 probably wouldn't have. So yeah, I just absolutely just love how she's just, she sticks up for herself in every moment. And even in moments where we kind of cringe a little bit and are like, should you really be saying that, Dana? Is that really safe? She just goes all for it. And it's high stakes. This show is really kind of going into bold territory and really taking us through high stakes situations where there's a conversation to be had about the different decisions that Dana makes. And I'm very interested. I'm definitely here for it. So
yeah, agreed. So obviously Thomas is not pleased that things have fallen apart with Charles, so he confronts Kevin about what happened between them, because obviously he walked in on something. He doesn't know quite what happened, but he knows that he caught Charles and Kevin in a compromising position. So he kind of gets it out of Kevin that Charles touched him. Like, Kevin's like, all right, you touched my genitals. And
not cool.
And not cool. And Thomas is actually happy about it. Apparently it's been like a thing. There's been rumors that Charles is, homosexual. And so he's like, oh yeah, we should celebrate tonight. So I mean, it's not revealed why Thomas is so happy, but I'm thinking he's going to leverage this to get what he wants from Charles. Either blackmailing him or putting it out there that he's gay. And now, obviously that's a crime in those times. So he could essentially get what he wants because of this new information. So he's very excited about that. So we end up at the cookhouse. We see Isidore interacting with Sarah. Sarah does not like how Margaret carries herself. She's like nothing like Isidore and Hannah, she says they're actual real ladies. And then she, starts to complain about the fact that, not complain, but she cries to Isidore about the fact that Margaret sold her sons for the new furniture in the parlor. So that's where we kind of get the title of the episode, Furniture. And as Jamie mentioned, the fact that furniture is more prized and thought of as more important than slaves. So Isidore obviously isn't happy with what has been transpiring, but there's really not much she can do, and she ends up leaving and say goodbye. And then Sarah pulls Dana to the side because Dana happened to be in the cookhouse with Olivia, and she knows that Olivia is attending to Dana. She's like, oh, well, since you're being looked after by Olivia, then I'm sure you're pregnant, and don't make the same mistake as I did. You need to get on your knees and beg your master, Kevin, for your child's freedom, because you have to remember the way that slaves were kept slaves, even if they had a white father, was that slavery was passed through the mother. So no matter what, you're always going to come from a mom, right? You're always going to be born to a mother. People were kept enslaved that way. So, apparently, Sarah is kind of passing off some advice to Dana and telling her, like, don't be like me. So I'll stop there for your thoughts.
I think that moment between Sarah and Dana was kind of like Dana's moment to kind of have that realization of where she was. Like, I think she has those check-in moments where she's kind of flying through and she's like, I can do this. I can move like this. I'm not worried about this. And then she has that kind of check-in moment where it's like, oh, well, if this is really my life, like, if I really was pregnant, I have no, I have to do something to protect my kids, or a certain say that she would have. Mm-hmm. So I think it's interesting how they give her like those reality check moments, so to speak, every once in a while, where it's like, she's fighting to get away from, some white guy, like she was doing in the earlier episodes, or she's faced with what Black women in that era, they didn't feel that freedom that she feels. So I like seeing that scene play out. But yeah, I mean, it's getting more and more interesting how as she has to keep, going back and forth between these worlds, and whatever she goes down to the cook area and you see the slaves in there compared to like when she's walking through the house. So yeah, it's very interesting to keep seeing it unfold.
Yeah. And what about your thoughts on Thomas potentially using this information about Charles being closeted against him?
Oh, that's gonna be interesting, because Thomas strikes me as that guy that he's gonna will and deal to get what he needs to get. Like, he's not gonna get it on the up and up. Like, he's not gonna work for it. So he's like, let me work these relationships around me and figure out. He's not caring about who he steps on. It's like, as long as it plays out in his favor, he's ready to go. So that's gonna be real interesting to come after him, because it seems like Charles is the guy that's right now is the one that has everything that people want. Like, he's that guy in society. So to be able to have that much information on him in that time period is going to be real interesting to see how he uses that.
Okay, Jamie?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ryan. Thomas is going to wheel and deal his way into this information that he just uncovered and use it to his advantage for sure. And that's why he's so excited that this hunch and these rumors that have been going around, which probably it's sort of one of those things that's an open secret. Now that it's confirmed, he can leverage that over Charles, and I would assume probably blackmail would be the route to get what he wants out of Charles, which will benefit him in a lot of ways, and he's happy and grateful to Kevin for that, which is the cause for the celebration. And then shameless plug. So we here, Black Girl Nerds, recently did an exclusive interview with Brandon Jacob Jenkins, who is the showrunner of Kindred. And one of the biggest deviations, creative liberties, rather, taken on the show is the creation of Olivia, Dana's mother. So one of the things that he had brought up, which now, as he's explained it, is very intriguing to me, is that he really wanted to dig into the genealogy and sort of the history of this character's ancestry, because that's what Octavia Butler originally was trying to do with the story, as he was sort of digging into her studies, and because he was really reading into her writings and studying Octavia Butler's works while he was prepping for the show. And that's kind of sort of the path that she was kind of going towards. So that's inevitably what caused the creation of Olivia. So seeing this dynamic between Olivia and Dana, and again her wanting to sort of peel the layers and really unpack and unveil and uncover rather, who she is and figure out her history. It's pretty quite compelling. And if you read some of her other works, that a lot of that is, very pertinent in some of her other books. And then the Alice character, I think you had mentioned in our previous episode, Angelica, about you think that Alice may be sort of the replacement or Olivia maybe
yeah,
maybe a replacement for Olivia. And he was like, stay tuned. So there may be some connection there, but even so, it is pretty fascinating to know that this is kind of more like a sort of a genealogy journey for Dana. It's not just this slave story or this time travel story. It's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, definitely. So Olivia ends up taking Kevin and Dana back to her home, and they do meet Alice. So they changed it up a little bit. In this series, Alice is Hagar's daughter. In the book, it's the opposite. Alice is Hagar's mother. So they switch it around a little bit, but Alice is supposed to be around the same age as Rufus, so that still aligns. So Olivia has been taking care of Alice since her mother died from what Olivia believes was cancer. And then Alice ends up showing Dana her dolls and her cat, which we figure out is Princess Di, Hermione's cat from the future or the present time. So while Dana's kind of distracted and talking to Alice, Olivia prepares a tea and she cryptically tells Kevin not to worry about Dana. She will be fine. Just make sure she drinks a lot of water. And Kevin's like, huh? And and earlier, she's not dumb. She could see there's something going on between Kevin and Dana. So she's like, oh, are you my daughter's boyfriend? And he's like, we just kind of met. We're getting to know each other. So, Dana eventually comes to sit at the table with them to have tea. And Olivia tells Dana that Alice's mother was a free woman, but it would be hard for Alice as a child to maintain that status. If anything were to happen to Olivia, Alice could easily be brought into slavery. So she gives Dana a family ring. She wants her to keep it. And then she also explains to her, like, I can't control my time traveling ability. I've been stuck here for so long. I think I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. 2016 is so far ahead as far as where my mind is at. I don't even know if I'll fit in, but I want you to take Alice with you. And so she kind of figures out that Rufus is calling to Dana when he believes he's going to die. And so she thinks a similar effect must happen for Dana to travel. So she poisoned Dana's tea. So as she's talking to Dana starts to choke. And her theory is right. If Dana is scared or believes she's scared to the point that she thinks she's going to die, that triggers her time traveling. And so Nick is holding on to her, trying to revive her. And we kind of end the episode knowing that Dana's going to travel, but we don't see it. And that is it for the episode. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on those final scenes.
I just like Kevin's reaction as he's sitting across the table when he finds out she was poisoned and she started coughing.
Yeah, he's like,
I just like Kevin is always like, why is there something else to do? Like he's just sitting there calm, trying to drink his tea. But I love this edition of Olivia because it's like one thing for Dana to have to go back, and just get like a book and have to read like, what her ancestry was and, have to go back and figure it out. But to have like her mom there saying, well, I did this back in this and time and I didn't know that it was true. And I had this dream and she's like figuring it out for Dana, giving her these little pieces so she doesn't feel, I know at times she still feels alone, but at least there's somebody to say, hey, I went through this too. Or maybe this connects the dots too. I think they're both like being able to lean each other in these two different time periods, which is gonna, like James said, it's gonna be so interesting to see their dynamic continue and like what it means and what she'll continue to find out.
Yeah. Jamie?
Yeah, this is a great eye opener, because I think in the last episode I was like, any sort of emotional triggers warps her from the past to the present, but it seems that not only obviously you do become very emotional when you deal with some sort of physical trauma, but yeah, like if she's under some sort of threat of death, that's what triggers her to shift between these time portals. I don't know if there's like an official term for it. I don't know, but
I think she just falls.
yeah,
Just falls back.
falls back, falls forward. I don't know.
Yeah. Because you think about it. So the first time she traveled back to the present day was when Olivia, attacked her. Obviously, because Olivia was like scared out of her mind that her child was standing in front of her. When Thomas put the gun to her head, that scared her back to the present. When the patrolman was beating up on her and basically choking her to death. And now when she's been poisoned, or believes to have been poisoned. And then similar effect with Rufus, when Rufus was on his, in his crib on his face, couldn't breathe, when he was drowning, when he thought he was going to die in a fire, he thought his dad was going to kill him. Those are the things, and when he fell out of the tree. So they kind of have this connection with near-death experiences that are calling to each other. So that's how we wrap the episode. So we're going to now break down episode 4, entitled The Waiter from 2 Nights Ago. And it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that's Kevin. So this episode is named after Kevin. And we open with Hermione, Dana's nosy neighbor. She's spying on Dana and Kevin next door, and obviously she's seeing them in the moment when they go back in time together for the first time. So all she can see is Dana like convulsing and Kevin holding on to her. So it looks like maybe he's like manhandling her. And so she's like telling her partner Carlo, like, something's going on next door. Let's investigate. Just being a nosy neighbor. So they, they go together and they knock on Dana's front door. Dana doesn't answer. So they open up her door. And at this point, they see Kevin and Dana on the floor, and they're in their underwear and they're convulsing together. So, one can only assume they're doing something, they're obviously doing the do. And Carlo's like, what the hell, Hermione? Like, what's wrong with you? We just walked in on them. And, he kind of forces her to go back home. And so, obviously Dana's convulsing because Olivia gave her something, and then Kevin, thanks to his quick thinking, realizes that he needs to give her water. So whatever Olivia gave her, apparently it gets cured with water. And so he gives her water. Dana starts to feel better, and Kevin's like, wow, Olivia, she figured it out. She found a way to control your time travel. And Dana's like, no. No. Like, you can't almost kill me for me to travel. Like, I'm not doing that again. I could actually die the next time. That's not happening. And then they realize that they are in their underwear, meaning that the clothes from the past don't travel with them. So I thought that was interesting. So I'll stop there for your thoughts.
Yeah,
they're in their underwear.
I was like, why did they take the clothes? I was like, so every time they time travel and they're like shirts or whatever, they got to explain why they're in the outfit. Then when they come back, they go just have on the underwear. I was like, what? But so it's interesting how we just keep getting layers. Like every time they come back, like what she can and can't do, like how many seconds is it? It gets real crazy. But yeah, Hermione, she got to calm it all the way down. Like it's been the same thing all night. It's like, girl, you just gonna have to let it go. Like she got the little neighbor app. Just stay on your little app. Stay over there. But yeah, she just keep trying to poke around, and I'm just like, it never goes well when you just that determined to try to get in somebody's business. Yeah. But she just staying on it. But yeah, that whole thing was insane how they came back together. And I know Kevin is like, Lord, all I did was get on the Tinder app.
Well, he gave her a ride home. That's what started it. But
that's true. That is true. Yep. That ride. Yep. Yes. Riding in on Tinder. Yep. There you go. Yep.
The waiting of the tables, then the ride, then the because he was the waiter from 2 nights ago. Yes. Yeah. Indeed. I mean, Hermione, sometimes it's not bad having a nosy neighbor because they do come in handy when it comes to neighborhood watch. But when there's like a whole bunch of racial microaggressions buried under that, then it's a problem, because obviously she's scrutinizing Dana because she feels threatened by her because she's a racist. Let's just call it what it is. So it's really annoying to see how she's just so obsessed with what is going on in Dana's home. But yeah, the whole thing with Kevin and or with, you know, her traveling and they don't have clothes on, but yet they have underwear. I just thought that was funny, because it's like the underwear stays with them, but the clothes don't. So that,
well, I was gonna say the underwear is their underwear from the present, so that
Is
stays
it?
with them. But the clothes that they wore that are off of them, because they changed into clothes from the past. So for whatever reason, the clothes from the past doesn't go with them, so they were left with their modern day underwear.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right. I'm
yeah,
glad you caught that. Okay. So then they had their own contemporary day underwear with them already,
yeah,
right? In the present,
yeah.
with their contemporary day clothes over their underwear. They travel back to the past. They
Right,
have
and
new
they
clothes.
changed into the past clothes, but kept on their drawers. So when they went
Okay.
back to the
They
past,
kept
went
on.
back to the present, then those clothes were gone, and yeah. So
See, this is why you're here, Angelica.
But can they keep the present clothes underneath the past clothes and then come back?
right, but they don't know that until now, and
See,
they're
what
like,
I'm
"Oh,
thinking, Kevin was probably offered some underwear. Like, I can see them not giving Dana underwear because they treat sis
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
trash.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But Kevin was probably offered some clean underwear, some clean undergarments, some underoos, whatever they called it back then. He just
right."
chose not to wear them. So,
I
okay.
wouldn't, because like who knows what kind of scratchy material? Like he wants to wear his boxer briefs. So.
That's true. That's true.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad at him. So
Okay, I have a question though. I know we're getting caught up in this whole underwear travel thing.
underwear.
What about the earbuds? Why did that stay in the past?
Well, did he have them on his person? I don't know if he had them with him when he left. Like I think he was just focused on Dana. So
Okay,
we've confirmed.
so in the past does not travel to the future, but the future can go back to the past.
Yes.
Okay, as far as clothes, items that you're wearing on your personhood, all of that stuff.
Yes.
Okay. I need to be clear on this stuff.
Well,
now
the
that we
next time
cleared
she
that
pop up,
up.
would she be in her underwear or was she kidding? I was kidding.
Yeah, I mean she
she
does. We do see her in the first episode in her underwear, which is supposed to be a flash forward from the events of this episode. So
Right.
she does indeed pop up in her underwear. But
Sure.
so moving on from underwear.
Right.
Anthony's calls Alan and asks him to check on Dana. She's worried about her after Dana called asking questions about her mother. She also heard a strange man in the background, and Alan kind of wants to mind his business, let Dana do her, but he reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, Dana and Kevin are, in her bed, just kind of discussing everything that's happened. Kevin is looking through pictures that he took on his phone from the past. But doesn't really prove anything, right? And Dana starts to talk about Rufus, and she believes Rufus calls her when he panics, as we'd mentioned earlier, when he feels like his life is in danger. And she knows eventually that Rufus will call her back, so she needs to prepare for it. And Kevin wonders, like, there has to be a reason why this is happening to you and your mother. There has to be rules as to what's going on. He just wants to figure it out. But then he gets a text, and it's the dinner that he ordered from I think 2 or 3 nights ago, before him and Dana got into their fight.
Oh yeah, the DoorDash order or Uber Eats or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So we know the time. Yeah, the Postmates, one of those. We know that time is different when they travel back and forth. So they realize that, if Dana goes back tomorrow, it's possible that Rufus may end up being a grown man. So they decide to end up, getting supplies for when Dana returns back to the past. So Kevin takes Dana back to his place to grab some clothes. Kevin is staying with his sister. While Dana's waiting for Kevin, Kevin grabs a gun, and then Kevin's sister Penny arrives, and she's surprised to see Dana, and she's also wondering what happened to Dana's face because Dana still has a black eye from when she was attacked by the patrolman. And Dana's like, I got into a fight, so she's just like, oh, okay. But she sees something as amiss. She starts to question Kevin. She thinks he's behaving strangely. She's like, is there anything going on? You can tell me. And Kevin obviously has been through this with Penny. He shrugs her off and he leaves with Dana. So Kevin has some type of past that we'll get into later on in the episode, and his sister seems to be very protective of him. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on this non-underwear scene.
Well, I gotta go back to the clothes a little bit because Kevin was definitely wearing his little tiny robe laying in the bed.
Yes. He was wearing that lovely blue robe that he borrowed from Dana.
I thought the both of them sitting in the bed was hilarious. Like him trying to look through pictures. I don't know. Their relationship is just so funny to me. Like how they like go through all this kind of stuff and it is just like super chill, laid back. Let's just figure this out. Look through some pictures. And them trying to put we get like you said, we get another cool like information about time where it's like, okay, so my order coming in from Postmates or whatever, so we still in the same night, but back before it was like 3 days ago. So what's going on here? So I like how they keep like slowly giving us pieces of like these rules that she has to figure out, and we don't know like exactly what's happening, but at the same time it's insane because I know I feel like I'm going crazy. The time lapse that they have going on, but and then it was cool seeing some more of Kevin's background. Obviously him and Penny, there's something going on there. Besides that, Kevin is just a horrible liar. So usually his best bet is just to keep walking past you, not answering any questions. So you're caught up in between. Obviously she's going to be concerned. This girl shows up. He has this girl with her. He doesn't know that she doesn't know the girl. The girl has a black eye. What the heck's going on? Like, what he got herself into? So. And she doesn't know about the gun, thank God, because really she probably tried to send a police over and get him locked up or something. I don't know. Because she was just looking at Kevin like, Kevin, I need you to call me. I need you to tell me what's going on. But he just walks right out. So that's gonna be interesting. But at least it's like, I guess somebody in his corner, somebody that is concerned if something goes wrong with Kevin. Because I kind of thought before he was like a loner. I was like, I wonder if he has anybody else that's like, any other kind of relationships and stuff that we're gonna get to see. So this is interesting to see her brought in.
Yeah. Jamie?
Yeah, and I don't think she's a character in the book, if I'm not mistaken. Feel free
I don't
to
think we
me.
get much of his family, just that they don't approve of their marriage, and that's all I really got from it.
Yeah, so like you said, Ryan, it's good that we're getting some backstory about Kevin, because the more we learn about these characters, the more we understand why they make the choices that they make. That's what I love about I'm going to say my favorite term, y'all. Character development.
Okay.
But that is an important thing when it comes to TV writing and understanding the motives, the plans, the reasoning for why a character does what they do. And is it their background, whether it's their familial background, whether it's they were bullied as a kid, or whatever is developed out of that character written by the writer, that those are important things to map out in a story to make a story compelling. So that aside, I'm glad that we're seeing something of Kevin's background, because it's like, why is he sticking around? Like now that we've deviated a little bit from the book, because Kevin and Dana are married in the book, so it's a little different. If you're married, you're gonna stick by your wife in this type of situation. Why is he hanging out with Dana when he could easily just walk out of this situation? I like seeing this Penny character. I'm curious to see how their connection either grows throughout the rest of these episodes, and what their relationship is like, and how that impacts Kevin and how he treats women, and how, that maybe affects his relationship with Dana. So, yeah,
agreed. So We'll find out more about Penny and Kevin. So Kevin takes Dana to the drugstore. They get all these supplies, ways to clean wounds, Pedialyte because people died of dysentery in the past, as Dana had mentioned, like all your survival kit for, going back to the 1800s. And they get too much stuff according to Kevin, and Kevin's like, I don't know how you're gonna fit this in one bag, and Dana's like, no, we can put them in 2 bags. And they arrive back at Dana's home, and they're immediately confronted by Hermione, who's upset that Kevin has accused her of being a racist on the Neighbor app. She's like, oh, you're basically saying I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan, which is, there's nothing worse than someone who's racist not understanding that they are racist, however subtle,
Some of my best friends are Black. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah, she's completely she's not very self-aware, but she does genuinely, I do think she is concerned about Dana. I think ultimately she doesn't want to see a woman beaten, so she's questioning Dana about her safety. Is Kevin hurting her? If there's anything you want to tell me. And Dana's like, just leave me alone. And Hermione's like, I'm gonna call the police. And then at this point Kevin loses it and tells her to fuck off, which greatly offends Hermione. She's like, excuse me?
That was a yes moment for me when he said that.
And he says it louder. He's like, fuck off. So, yeah, she wasn't a fan of that. So back inside, Dana's upset with Kevin. She's like, I don't need you to defend me. And he was like, I was trying to shut it down. And she was like, this is not shutting it down. You kind of escalated the situation. Like, you need to communicate with me better. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The whole situation with my mom poisoning me. Like, why didn't she communicate? Which, in fairness to Kevin, he did not realize what Olivia was saying. So, not sure how he could have warned her when it was very cryptic. But in any case, she's right. He needs to communicate better with her. She's like, I can't have this happening if we go back together. And Kevin's like, I'm not going back. He's like, and to your point that you've been saying, you found it interesting that they are dating rather than being married. He tells her, like, I don't even know you like that. We just met and we're going through all this together. And, that place, that experience isn't good for me. It puts me in a bad headspace. So he's like, I'm not going back. But he does offer to stay in the present, to kind of be like headquarters for her, making sure when she comes back that she's okay, and having food for her and having supplies for her. And then he gives her the gun. And Dana's like, I don't even know how to use a gun. Why would you get that? And so he ends up hiding it in the fridge. So I'll stop there for, I guess, your thoughts on the exchange with Hermione, and also the fact that Kevin doesn't want to go back to the past. Dana's on her own.
Well, first, I love that they loaded up on supplies, because I was waiting for that to happen. Like, I was wondering, I was like, can they take this back with them? Like, can she have any kind of weapon or something? Like, I don't know, some way to hide it just in case, because, she's getting a lot of like touch and go situations. She'll have nothing on her. So I thought that was interesting for him to suggest that. And then, Hermione, it's just like, at a certain, obviously we know she's pulling off being racist, but it's like, girl, at a certain point, if somebody is telling you, look, I'm fine, it's only so much you can do. Like, either you go call the police, back off, do your own thing. But she's taking it to a whole other level, just being all up in their business. So I was with Jamie. I appreciate Kevin going off, because I was like, girl, you just need to calm down. Like, I don't understand it. It's like every 5 minutes, it's like they go out the house, come back, there she go. And it's just like, leave it alone. If they already said they fine, just did it. Like, if you think something else is going on, at that point you call the police from your house. Like, stop coming over there and try to get into the business. I'm like, shoot, if she gonna end up taking her to the next time period, because she always there. I'm like, she always showing up, put her hand on her, taking her back to the time period. But it's just her, like, the struggle is just real for her to leave her alone. But anyway, I think Dana, like, she's definitely leaning into trying to do everything for herself. And I'm like, if Kevin, it's very strange for Kevin not, it's not, they're not married, they don't know each other that long, but if Kevin is willing to, like, stay at the house, hold down the headquarters, so there's somebody there, I just feel like that's a lot. Like, you jumping in between, you going back to the past, you don't really know what's going on. You got these crazy neighbors, you don't really know what's happening when you get back at those kind of seconds. So I think it's something to like offer she should take him up on. Like, I'm gonna stay at the house, right? Like, I can hold you down here, just so she's just not like bouncing all over the place randomly. Like, there's nobody there in the present to kind of, pull her back or keep things in check, while she's hopping back and forth. So, I mean, I think that's interesting if he's not going to go back because, the mama did say, like, Kevin gonna get you killed, come back to the past. So maybe he need to stay like in the, in the house and just kind of hold it down.
Yeah. Jamie?
Yeah, I think that this, going back to what I was saying, I know I kind of like reel into it a lot with these conversations, but going back to the Kevin and Dana relationship dynamic, this was a great moment that shows an example of why these creative liberties were taken. I admit in our last episode, I wasn't a fan of it. And kind of now sort of understanding based off of my interview with Brendan Jacob Jenkins, the showrunner, who gave his take as to why they decided to go down that path. And then even what you had said, Angelica, like, I think that it'll make for not only good conversation because people will have their own thoughts and opinions about it, but it makes it a kind of a high stakes relationship, which is actually what Brendan said in our interview. It's like, it's kind of a high stakes thing. So, and we're now seeing Kevin making these kinds of decisions that probably he wouldn't have been able to kind of make, I guess, if he was within the confines of a marriage. But knowing that he doesn't want to go back to the past, it's cool to know that he's still willing to stick by her. He's like, look, I'll be here with you. Like you said, at headquarters, I got you with your supplies. I can give you what you need. So Kevin is still kind of like ride or die in this situation, sort of like he's still willing to stick by her, which is to me still weird. Like, dude, you just met her on Tinder. You just met her at this restaurant.
Maybe Dana got some Badu energy over Kevin. She put it on him, and he's just like, I gotta stick beside her.
Like she did something. She put something on him. Because but did he travel with her before they hooked up or after?
No, they hooked up. And then
they traveled,
because
directly after hooking up.
That's right. Because they did the furniture shopping and then they did exactly. So you're right. Maybe Dana did something. But still, is it worth going back in slavery time and dealing with all that mess? I don't know.
I feel like it's like a trauma bond at this point.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
So anyway, this relationship is probably one of the most unique and interesting relationships I've seen on a TV show in a while. Between Kevin and Dana. So it'll be an adventure to see how it plays out. Cause I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse here by saying the same thing over and over again, but it is sort of like a high stakes relationship. Like you don't know where it's going to go. Is he going to stick around? Is he going to leave her?
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah. Well, he seems to be like a good dude. So it could be the kindness of his heart, or Dana put it on him, or a combination of all of it, or just general curiosity. Honestly, if I met a time traveler, I think I'd stick around too, just to figure out what's going on. So I think it's a couple things motivating Kevin to stick beside Dana.
It depends on what time period we're going to, though. That's
the thing. It's like I could see if they went back to a time period where, like, he's a big fan of, who was it that he was a fan of?
Luther Vandross.
Yeah, Luther effing Vandross. Like, if he went back to the 80s and stuff, like, okay, I could see where he'd be like really excited and geeked out about it. But what was going on during this time? Who was it? Like Bach or something, or Mozart? I don't know who the big musicians were of the day. I don't know.
I can't tell you. But in any case, there's something keeping Kevin around. He's intrigued one way or the other. So, Carlo, Hermione's partner, confronts Kevin in the front yard for disrespecting Hermione. Carlo slaps Kevin, and Kevin apparently can fight, and he knocks out Carlo. So they get to tussling on the front yard, and Alan shows up and breaks it up, and he gets Carlo off the property because he's a cop, and he's like, you're trespassing, and he flashes his badge. He demands Kevin and Dana go back in the house, and Kevin's still talking shit, and he's like, boy, don't you know when to be quiet? Like, get in the house. And then he's like, oh, I feel like I know you from somewhere. And he ends up referring to Kevin as the waiter from 2 nights ago. So he's, Alan is genuinely concerned and just confused about what's happening. He's like, what's going on with you, Dana? What's going on with your face? Did that man hurt you? And, Dana's like, no, he's a friend. I fell and I slipped. And, he's a cop. He knows when people are lying about domestic violence situations, so he's not buying it. But in any case, he tells Dana Denise is really worried about her. And, he convinces Dana to go with him to see Denise. Meanwhile, Kevin's sister is sending him texts concerned about his sobriety. So we realize that Kevin is a recovering alcoholic. So that kind of explains why he doesn't really have like a career. He's working as a server. He's like rooming with his sister, which maybe that's another reason why he's so drawn to Dana, because she's something exciting in his life. So Dana leaves with Alan, and as she's leaving, Kevin is left in the house alone, and he finds Olivia's ring on the floor. So I know earlier we discussed pretty in depth about underwear and things not traveling to the present, but this ring made its way back to the present. So it kind of, I guess it reignites something in Kevin, because like I said, he wasn't really a big fan of going back to the past, so he goes to find Dana. And on the way to the hospital, Alan and Dana have a heart-to-heart, and he kind of explains to her why the family is so distant, the toll that Dana's mother took on Denise, so he's kind of sheltered her and protected her from the drama back home, and that's why Dana wasn't as big a part of their lives as they would have liked. So he apologizes for that. So they seem to reconcile. At the same time, Kevin's driving to the hospital. He's calling his sister, and he, at this point, is convinced that what's happening between him and Dana is fate. So I'll stop there for your thoughts.
I definitely love the Carlo and Kevin fight, because I felt like that was coming at any moment, because they would just not go away. And Carlo was like, he tripped me out with that line, don't you talk to the future mother of my kids like that? I was like, sir, please go somewhere. It's just like the height of the situation when it was just like, mind your business. Could have like fixed the whole thing. But yeah, I love Alan showing up like, okay, y'all listen, let me pull out my badge. Y'all need to get it together. You go back over there. I don't know what you're doing. To kind of put it in perspective, because Dana was kind of just standing there. So yeah, she needed an extra hand to kind of get it under control. And then poor Kevin was just in the corner after that. Like, they put baby in the corner. Like, he wasn't allowed to say nothing else when Alan was in there. He was like, just be quiet. I didn't ask you all that. So it's just, I feel bad for him walking around with Dana with this black eye. It's like he got to explain this every time he goes somewhere.
Right.
With her tribe travel and everything. But it also it's still that constant reminder though, when she time travels, like, how much can her body take, and like the risk of like, if this happens and she comes back, like how much is too much when she's not gonna, she might not travel right, or it's gonna take her longer to recover. Like, I don't know, it's very interesting, like the like physically how it's gonna start to wear on her. And you can tell like she probably has to sleep a bit, or sleeps a little bit, and then she has to get up again. So it's going to be interesting the way that plays out. And then I love the story that we finally get to hear Alan tell a little bit about, going back to maybe why the dinner was so awkward when we first meet all of them. To figure out, like there's the secrets in the family, and Alan's like, he knows something else is going on, but maybe he kind of just brushes it off. He's like, I'm going to pull, my wife away from all this kind of stuff, the niece away from what's going on. Because, for her well-being, and that he doesn't really want to deal with it. And that kind of left Dana on the outs. So it's interesting to see the family dynamic. And then like maybe, you know, Denise's brother or whatever, like he understood, you know, Olivia, you know, obviously being married, and like maybe he knew what was going on. And, you know, maybe he wasn't sharing with the rest of the class, or he was willing to kind of, you know, go on that adventure. That'd be something cool to kind of find out in the future about how that relationship went down. But yeah, I like that. I like more of that info about Denise and Dana, because you could tell they care about each other, but it was such a hard riff that you were like, something's not right. Something else is going on here.
Yeah,
you bring up a good point about Dana and her body and the wear and tear that's on her body as she's shifting and traveling back and forth, because I never really thought about that. And even in the book, because when she's going back to the present, it's only been like hours that have actually passed. Mm-hmm. So as she's enduring all of this physical trauma to her body, she's enduring it like hour by hour by hour. So it really is taking, that physical toll on her body is really significant. And that just didn't really dawn on me until now. So I wonder if the show is going to address that at all, because it would make sense.
Curious,
it would make sense, like, you know, the black eye, and if there's any more abuse being, you know, done to her. I mean, we know from the very first episode that we don't see that her arm is amputated, which is what happened in the book. So they've kind of gone off in a different direction with that as far as her body trauma is concerned. But I'm good point there, Ryan. I never thought about that.
Or it's possible we're not at that part of the story yet, because she loses her arm when Rufus is an adult and he's still a kid. So, and it's only been 2 days. So it's possible we just haven't gotten to that ending yet. But she got beat up. Something happened to Dana.
Yeah. That is very true. And the only reason I thought that they skipped that is because it's the very first part of the story that kicks off how all of this begins, is, you know, her narrating it. So but that's true. Who's to say that it won't happen? There was a funny moment when Alan called Carlo, like, with your skinny tail or your skinny butt or something. I thought that was hilarious, because he does look like a little beanpole. But this was I enjoyed watching each of these scenes, and great, good stuff. That's it.
Yep. So Dana ends up meeting with Denise at the hospital. They kind of discuss the time travel. Like, I was surprised that Dana just came out and said it. Like, I went to the past. My mom's alive. She's stuck back there. And Denise appears to take it in. She's like, okay, all right. I see what you're saying. Let me get some coffee. In the parking lot, Alan spots Kevin and demands he stay away from Dana, because I know Alan's convinced that Kevin has been putting hands on Dana. You know, Denise, you know, steps away to get the coffee, comes back to return to the discussion, and she tells Dana she does believe Dana to a degree. She believes that Dana believes her experiences are real, and her mother was the same way. Her mother used to see things, but you know, Denise feels guilt because she did not do enough to help Olivia. So at this point, Dana starts to side eye Denise. She was like, something's off. So she knocks over the coffee to distract her. You know, Denise goes to clean up the mess to get more coffee, and then Dana takes off. She grabs her thing and she leaves. So Kevin finds Dana in the hospital hallway, and Dana, you know, gives him a big hug, and she cries to him, and she's upset that her aunt doesn't believe her, and she feels so alone. And Kevin tells her she's not alone. He's there for her. He basically apologizes for trying to distance himself from her, for not wanting to travel back with her. And then they prepare to leave. You know, he's saying that what's going on between them is really fate, and it means something. He's going to stick beside her. So they kind of try to leave the hospital, but a code purple has been issued for Dana over the intercom. And of course, I don't know why they went in that direction, but they end up like going back to like the main part of the hospital, and they run into Denise, who's with security, and they, you know, give chase. So like Kevin and Dana are running through the hospital, and they lock themselves in a supply closet. So Denise and company are like knocking on the door, getting them to come out. and Kevin shows Dana her mother's ring. You know, he believes that if this ring came back, then maybe Olivia can travel back in time. And then Dana begins to convulse, and Kevin holds on to her, and Denise finally gets into the supply closet, and they've disappeared. And that's how we end the episode. So Dana and Kevin went back in time. So your thoughts for those final scenes. And at least this time around, Dana's life wasn't in danger. She was just under threat of probably being institutionalized. So that was enough to get her to jump back in time. So your thoughts?
Yeah, that's true. I was disappointed by. Oh well, actually, I want to say with Alan and Kevin, I thought it was funny. Kevin was like, "Well, can I at least get her number?" Like, yo, he was like, "No," and then just walked off and like left me in the parking lot and everything. So yeah, Alan ain't feeling Kevin, but hopefully he'll come around. Maybe later they'll work that out or whatever. But yeah, going into like all the stuff that was going down in the hospital, Dana and Denise, I was so disappointed by their exchange, because when she called Dana, or wanted to talk to Dana through Alan's phone, it sounded like she was going to give her some really good, like tips or talk about some facts, and maybe she found out about her mom. Mm-hmm. So I thought she was going to really give us some more, because I feel now as a fan, you're on a fact finding mission of how this works every time she goes back to the past. And what clues, you start becoming a detective, what clues you could pick up. So I thought she was gonna give us some knowledge. I thought she was gonna talk about something she noticed about Olivia, her going back to the past, or her mannerisms, or certain things she would do. But she was just kind of faking a funk to kind of be there, to help Dana and be supportive, which is fine. But at the same time, it's if you see this kind of pattern in your family, I think I would be a little curious. I think I would try to do a little more hunting and figure out, are they really crazy? What's going on here? What's the whole story? But she was just kind of I'm just going to be here. I'm going to be that sort of support. So, Dana get to running. I mean, she didn't feel comfortable, didn't know what she could say, felt alone. And, there was Kevin. Kevin's still hanging on there. So, yeah, I think it's interesting how he just, he's still kind of going with the flow and realizing hey, maybe there's a bigger plan for us. And you don't know if he's crazy. He's just a sweet guy, but he's still there, on the adventure, carrying on with her. And I thought that closet scene in the hospital was hilarious, because I was like, only Kevin goes into the closet where they don't have any way to get out. And then when everything is going down and you see the look on his face where she's holding his hand to her chest. And he's like, "Oh God, you better take me back with you. Let my head go." And then they just disappear. So I thought that one was funny, because you could tell on his face everything was just changed and it just dropped, because he knew that she was gonna let go of his hand. And I know he was.
But he was ready. He was ready. He now thinks that they have a profound destiny together. So he willing to go back with them.
I think he wanted.
Yeah, he's scared. He's scared, but he going. Yeah. Jamie.
He's starting to like the thrill of it, I think. So that's why he sticks around. I think it was you that mentioned that maybe he's there out of curiosity. So I think he's starting to enjoy this little adventure that they're now on. I do find it convenient that the threat of being institutionalized is what warps her back. I thought it was the threat of death. Now it's the threat of being institutionalized that does it. But hey, that was a great moment for her to do it. And now I don't know. Now let's see if Denise finally believes her, because it's
yeah,
the room. I've been trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Denise and how she plays a role later on. But I like this. I like the way this ended, and to see that Kevin is sticking around.
Yeah, they keep leaving us on Dana traveling cliffhangers. We don't get to see it until the next episode, and I wonder what trouble Rufus got himself into now. Because
we know that Rufus is involved with this travel.
This travel odyssey. So
do you guys think Olivia knew about the ring? I was kind of wondering if she slickly just threw that in there.
I think Olivia wanted him to take the ring to ground them that this is real. And so she just wanted to give Dana and Kevin a piece of her. And then obviously Kevin concluded that if the ring can travel, then Olivia can travel. So that's just my
I was
personal
curious. I was like, I
theory.
wonder if Olivia know a little bit something extra that she ain't letting on to, because you know she's slick with it. Like if you give somebody that little poison and they bounce back with some water, I was like, whoop, she might be slick with it. So I was just curious. I was curious if she do something that we didn't know.
Yeah, I think Olivia is just testing out the water. She's trying to figure out, like, she throwing stuff at the wall and hoping things stick.
I ain't mad at it. She got to get about that time period.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's how it ends. Well, this episode ends.
Yes. That would be kind of messed up if that's how the show ends.
I know. I'm like,
like, really, y'all?
Where'd it go?
So this is what we're going to do. This is the end of our recap for now. We will wait until, all of the episodes, of course, are dropping on Hulu. I think it's all 8 episodes.
Yep, 8.
So we will do a series recap of all the rest of the episodes later on, and then just drop that episode. And, the holidays are here and we've got a lot of other projects that we're working on. So sort of our bandwidth, we've overextended ourselves. So for now, we're just going to have these 2 episodes here for you to enjoy. I hope you guys are enjoying binging the show right now. Definitely leave your comments on YouTube. Let us know on Twitter what your thoughts of our Kindred, #KindredFX. And we'll come back with another episode just giving our final thoughts, and we'll be dropping that later on. Alrighty.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds.